Before we get into the details of the Dink Trackstar, it's really important to understand where this mouse shape and design originated from. So the founder of Dink, Andrew, I'll use those interchangeably throughout this video, was competing in Tier 2 Overwatch in 2017, and he was finding it hard to compete with his peers, specifically with his aim mechanics. He realised his micro adjustments were poor, he couldn't get a consistent or comfortable grip with his ring and pinky finger, causing inconsistencies, and his tracking was getting lazy. He also felt that the pressure and adrenaline from those big matches made his aim quite shaky. So while Andrew recognises that with deliberate and consistent practice he could improve those issues, he started to look for different ways to solve the problems he was experiencing. In terms of mouse requirements, Andrew was seeking a mouse that would fill the volume of his hand so he could be more controlled with his micro adjustments. He wanted a mouse that informed exactly where every finger should go, and he wanted it to pick his wrist up off the pad as a reminder to use his arm while tracking. The first shape he tried was a vertical mouse, but he tried one and didn't like it at all for gaming. In his words, it sucked. It was bulky and it felt like he was learning to aim all over again. So he took all the things he liked from that solution and added his own twist to it. Over many iterations and a lot of self-help in terms of learning the process of developing and building a mouse, he came to today's design of the Trackstar. And I give massive respect to Andrew for taking the initiative and developing the product he wanted, but that didn't exist. He is aware that this mouse isn't going to work for everyone though, and it is radically different to anything else on the market, and therefore it can feel very strange to use initially. But he believes if you find yourself with the same aim issues I've already described in this video, this mouse is designed specifically to help you overcome those issues. And I think it does a good job at that. So that covers the context of the mouse design and shape. Let's talk a bit about the specs and the normal mouse review stuff. So the Trackstar weighs about 49 grams, and on my hard pads, the mouse doesn't feel heavy, doesn't feel too light. It feels like quite a nice balance. It currently comes with dot skates, which glide nicely on my Serapadkin, and the button configuration is also really unique. It provides you with a way to use the scroll wheel and mouse 4 and 5 buttons without taking your fingers off mouse 1 and 2. The side buttons have a fair bit of pre-travel to them, but I haven't had any issues with them at all in game, and they've worked great for me. Using your thumb for the scroll wheel will take a bit of getting used to, but it feels good to use, and the implementation overall is quite nice. It's not hard to press, and the steps are nicely defined without overdoing it. And if I had to make a comparison, I'd say it feels like the G Pro X Superlight scroll wheel, which is not a bad thing. The mouse 1 and 2 buttons are actually insane. They feel epic to use, and there's very limited post or pre-travel, which feels really satisfying and responsive. The Trackstar uses a 3360 sensor, which I haven't experienced any issues with myself, but I do accept this is dated tech at this point. The Trackstar is wired, but Dink are working on a wireless option for the future. And finally, we come to build quality. And overall, the build quality surprised me. I didn't know what to expect from a 3D printed product, but overall, it felt quite good in hand. There is an issue with the shell though, and Dink are going to address this. And they think they'll have a solution in place by the time this video goes live. But the issue I experienced with my unit is that the weight of my hand goes through my middle finger knuckle and makes contact with the Trackstar on the area the two shell pieces connect. And this makes the mouse creak, and if I don't squeeze with my ring finger, I can feel the two pieces fall out of alignment slightly. It is still usable though, and Dink kindly offered me a replacement when they implement a fix to the design. But I find it easy enough to manage by just applying a bit of pressure to the side of the mouse with my ring finger. I do realise some customers won't be happy with this though, so consider this your fair warning. Ultimately, the mouse is advertised as an advanced prototype, and that is really what you'll get. You can see the Trackstar is 3D printed by looking at it, due to the print layer lines on the shell. And while it is possible to eliminate the print layer lines on the Trackstar, it was a conscious decision to leave the layer lines in the design, and this helps to improve the way the product feels in the hand. It does offer some nice texture, and I really like it on the mouse 1 and 2 buttons. I'd rather have a textured surface than a completely smooth plastic one. I also want to talk a bit about how I performed with the Trackstar, and I found that it took me a couple of hours to get used to using it, because it was so different to anything I've used before. But after an hour or two, I honestly just forgot I was using it, and I settled into a bit of a rhythm with its unique shape. The first time I used Kovacs, I was surprised at how high I scored on my clicking scenarios, and I noticed that tracking felt good too. It definitely felt different though, and an immediate observation was how much I was using my arm to aim. And it was the first time ever that I realised I physically couldn't make fingertip adjustments with a mouse. As a player that leans towards fingertip grip naturally, this was a bit of a turn off for me initially. But again, I adjusted quickly to this, and when I had found my rhythm, my aim felt good with the Trackstar. I was hitting within 10% of my high scores in most scenarios in Kovacs. It is important to emphasise that I'm probably not the target audience for this mouse, and the issues that Andrew was trying to fix with this mouse are not issues I identify with myself, but I still really enjoyed using the Trackstar. So how do I grip the mouse? And I have two different ways of doing this. Both versions of the grip start with the same foundation because the Trackstar really does lock you into a specific style of grip. I find the mouse sits slightly off center in my hand to allow for my ring and pinky finger to comfortably curl on the right hand side, and my thumb knuckle makes contact on the other side of the mouse, and my middle finger knuckle sits on the seam where the two shell pieces join. The difference in grip is where my palm sits. So if I want to have a more full hand feeling, I can pull the mouse more into my palm, which brings my index finger knuckle into contact with the shell as well, bringing the mouse more into the center of my hand, and this resembles an unconventional palm grip approach. It feels kind of like wrapping your hand around a tennis ball. The second style of grip I actually prefer to use is a more claw-esque approach. I sit my middle finger knuckle a little lower on the shell, push the mouse further forward in my fingers, and bring my fingertips near the top of the clicks, which have a nice comfort groove to remind you where to place your fingers. I find this feels like a fairly restricted claw grip, but it is more dynamic than the palm grip I've already spoken about. And I really like the way it feels to use at this odd claw style. And I'd liken this using the same analogy to holding a tennis ball in these three fingers, your middle finger, your index finger and your thumb, holding a ball like that rather than like this. I would put this mouse in the same category as the HSK Pro in that it forces you into a specific grip style and it is genuinely fun to play with. It isn't my main, but I do use it when I want to have a fun experience. I do think the Trackstar could be someone's main though, and maybe if you have the same mechanical limitations Andrew recognised in himself in 2017, this mouse could be worth a try for you. Or if you're like me and you just like trying new things and different experiences for aim inputs, then the Trackstar is certainly worth a go. It's not too expensive. I also want to address some strange takes I've seen online around the Trackstar and its viability as a mouse shape, which is why I started the video with the design principles and context. And my thoughts on this are, if you know the mouse isn't going to work for you, then just don't buy it. Not every mouse on the market is designed with everyone in mind. And some people will see this and feel like they have to try it because it is so unique, people like myself. And others will see it and they'll dislike it and they'll try to burn it with fire. Sometimes change is good. And seeing Dink experiment with shapes is really exciting to me. Andrew and I have spoken about how we as a community can't have already found the best or most optimal shape for aiming, as we're still using a similar design to the original mouse made all those years ago. And Dink is seeking to explore different options and approaches to innovate on what we use as mouse shapes or even aim inputs more generally, which again I think is really exciting. And you can tune in to see what Andrew and Dink are working on their stream. He's very open with mouse design topics and will actually design his mice live on stream while engaging with people in the chat. It's worth a look if you're interested. His Twitch is linked below. So the Trackstar was conceived in Andrew's mind back in 2017, and now in 2023, 6 years later, he recognises there are still places to make improvements, but he can't design in a vacuum. His assumptions about what would make this and future designs better aren't always correct, and he's seeking to get it in more people's hands at this point to receive wider feedback. So if you'd like to support Andrew and Dink, Stubby has a code that will get you a discount, and all of that detail is linked below. It's also worth mentioning you can talk to Dink through their email to sort out a custom order, and I asked for mine to look like a mossy log, and they nailed it. There are some other customization options, so be sure to reach out if you want a customized Trackstar. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. I'll see you soon. Peace.